Good morning, Morning Musings by Melinda. I hope you had a great day yesterday. It's a beautiful morning. It's cool outside. It's the kind of weather that we are hoping for as we get through that long, hot summer here in Arizona. I wanted to talk to you about the 4-year rule of life and what that means. But if you are one of my Facebook followers, you will note that oftentimes we'll do a musing in the morning, and then throughout the day, we will put different things that go with the musing that helps us to understand in writing some of the things that I'm talking about as I'm teaching a little bit each day. And I noticed some things on a post that we put with a child with wide eyes that made me want to talk about the 4-year rule of life. On that post, it said, it's not our job to toughen our children to face a cruel and heartless world. It's our job to raise children to make the world a little bit less cruel and heartless. Let me just say to you that if you teach a child how to make a world cruel and less heartless, it means that you're teaching a child how to be compassionate and kind, to be someone who gives to others, that's someone that holds space. We talked about holding space, someone that understands that everybody has their own belief system and is not in judgment. That's what this post means. But someone wrote about narcissism on it, which I found very interesting, which it had prompted me to talk to you a little bit about the 4-year rule of life. Let's talk about how a kid becomes a narcissist, because teaching a child to stand in a world with kindness, compassion, and without being a bully themselves does not mean that they're going to attract a narcissist to them. And it does not mean that, although codependents do attract narcissists, but codependents come from a household where there's other issues, alcoholism or drug addiction, or some kind of turmoil throughout the family values that create the codependent's need to be in control and to be someone who gets into everything and tries to control it in a nice way. And they often attract narcissists to them because the narcissist is all about the narcissist, and the codependent is all about the narcissist. So if you raise your child to be a codependent, they can attract a narcissist, but you do not create a narcissistic child by teaching them kindness. If you're a narcissistic parent, you can teach a child how to be a narcissist. If the family motto is, if you can't be the best, why bother? You can teach a child to be a narcissist. When love is conditional and the only stability a child feels in regards to the love that they receive is when they excel or when they're the best at whatever they're trying to achieve, you can create a narcissist. You can create a narcissist if you're devaluing your child as a human being. The angry child can become toxic and malignant themselves. And the golden child can be a narcissist too. So what we were saying on that post has absolutely nothing to do with narcissism, but I'll tell you something. I got a kick out of it this morning because I was looking through Facebook posts and I saw a young woman write about spiritual narcissists, and that's my pet peeve, is people who are in the spiritual business or are in the business of giving something, getting something from spirit and giving something to people from spirit, who then get into a God complex, like certain doctors who think that they are above and beyond others because they can talk to the other side, which is absolute bullshit. We can all talk to the other side. We just need to learn to meditate and hear between the veils a little bit better. And so I got a kick out of that post today, because there are people who say, I was born awakened, or I was born a psychic medium, or I had a near-death experience and that made me a psychic medium and all that nonsense. So remember, we're all equal. We're all equally valuable in the eyes of God. And vibrational frequency, as we raise our vibrational frequency up in energy, it just simply means that you no longer tolerate toxic people and you move into a different essence of yourself and into a different balance. So I just wanted to comment on about that post. And then somebody else put something about kids that are molested. Well, as a hypnotherapist, I have special certifications in molestation, and it's a whole different ballywick. And it, again, has nothing to do with toughening up our children or making them able to face a world with compassion and kindness. Actually, when somebody's been seriously molested from the time they were young, usually a child takes that on to be their fault in a variety of ways. And you have to really work at unweaving all of that bullshit that's in their brains that the perpetrator put in there. So those are two different things. So that brings me to the 4-year rule of life and why I wanted to talk to you about it. Because, there's a big difference in 4 years at the beginning of life, and there's a big difference in 4 years at the end of life, and there's not a big difference in the middle of life. So what I mean by that is there's a big difference between a baby and a 4-year-old, a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old, a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old, a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old. And then it stops. There's not a big difference between 24, 28, 28, 32, 32, 36, 36, 40, 40, 44, well, you get the idea. And then when you reach my age, there's a big difference again. There's a big difference between 60 and 64, 64 and 68, 68 and 72, 72 and 76, and so on. And that 4-year rule of life applies again. What I've noticed as I've gotten my 60s is somehow it gives waitresses and store clerks permissions to call you honey. Which that's okay. Being called honey is better than being called something else. But anyway, when there is a trauma in childhood, whether you're 4, 8, 12, whatever, 9, 10, 11, what happens to the brain is the brain can get stuck in that trauma. And then as an adult, you can live out of that trauma. Which even though through the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks and what those books are so fabulous. I want you to read them, but they say let go of the past and focus on the now and move into the future that way. And sometimes you cannot let go of the past if there's trauma in the brain without doing some work around it. So you have to do some maybe hypnotherapy and clear some of the trauma out of your brain, because you can act like you're 12 when you're 45 or when you're 60. Have you ever known somebody that has a temper tantrum when, say, they're working on something and they made a mistake, or they maybe forgot a tool or whatever? Have you ever known that person that just screams and yells and carries on, or punches a wall, or that kind of kicks and carries on and has that tantrum? That's somebody that has trauma in their brain, and they're going back to that trauma. So anyways, what's going on in your 4-year rule of life? Where are you at in the midst of it? Understand the difference between creating kindness and compassion in children and what a narcissist truly is. And take a look at your own trauma and make sure that you're taking measures to clear it. If you have behavior that you don't like about yourself and it's ongoing and it's been a continuous problem throughout your life, you probably have something in childhood that has created that you need to look at and clear. By the way, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so I want everybody to know that. Remember that September was Mental Health Awareness Month, Suicide Awareness Month, and to reach out to those that you know that may be suffering from depression. And I hope you have a great day.